Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Chittassa damanang sadhu, chittang dantang sukhavahang. It is said in Dhammapada. Of all the good things that can happen to a person in the world is when the mind is completely under control, and therefore the mind is truly happy. So happiness and capacity to control the mind, these two are interconnected. They are interdependent, you cannot separate them. So, to the extent a person develops self-control, that is having control over the mind, to that extent one can enjoy happiness. Now happiness is something that everybody seeks. There is not one being in the whole universe who does not seek happiness. But then there are different modes of happiness. Just a momentary happiness by gaining something, by satisfying your ego, satisfying your greed, satisfying your militancy and aggressiveness. That kind of happiness is just very short-lived and have no meaning whatsoever. They only swing to the other extreme of suffering. Lord Buddha said, Dukkhan cheva panyapevi dukkha cha nirodho. I only point out to two things. One, that there is dukkha, great misery, unhappiness, unsatisfactoriness, pain, suffering, etc. And that there is a way by which one can overcome nirodho. One can make an end of suffering. So, the making end of suffering is the goal of Buddhism. Suffering at the bodily level, suffering at the mental level, suffering at the social level, suffering at the moral and ethical level, or philosophical or spiritual level. All kinds of sufferings are there, and therefore all kinds of happiness too exist. So, happiness is happiness. In this particular sense, happiness is that inner calmness, a calm mind and peaceful mind that is free from all kinds of mental disturbances or mental impurities. It is this kind of happiness that is lasting happiness, and a happiness that is worthwhile. A momentary happiness has very little meaning. So now, chittang dantang sukhavang, only a controlled mind truly leads to true happiness. That was the subject we partially dealt with yesterday, the last time. So happiness and self-control are closely related. So to the extent we are able to have control over our minds, over our emotions, our feelings, our desires, our ambitions, to that extent we can be happy. So happiness and having control over all these emotions and ambitions and things like that, they are absolutely closely related. So having known that, I will also quote a few more verses from Dhammapada about happiness. What exactly is happiness? Susukhang vata jivama verinesu averino, verinesu manusesu viharamasu averino. Happy indeed we live, friendly amidst the hostile. Amidst hostile men, we live free from hatred. So we are happy because we can be friendly while living with the hostile people. We are freed from hostility within because we have control over the mind. To the extent we are able to exert control over the mind, to that extent we can be freed from anger, hatred, hostility, and all these factors. These are the factors that bring unhappiness in the world. So happiness is directly related to how much of freedom you enjoy from your anger, from your antipathy, from your prejudice, from your hatred, and from your enmity. Imagine the state of the world today. How much happiness abounds everywhere, and all that is because of hatred. Hatred everywhere in the name of religion, in the name of politics, in the name of this, in the name of that. How foolish indeed human beings can be. Yet this hatred and anger and antipathy can be overcome just by developing self-control. One sane man, very self-controlled person who can control his or her anger and ill will and emotions, one such person is enough to bring a lot of happiness to hundreds and thousands of people. And one angry man, hateful man, prejudiced man can inject lot of hatred in others and bring lot of unhappiness, lot of suffering. Similarly, the Dhammapada says, Susukhan vata jivama aturesu anatura aturesu manusesu viharama anatura. Happy indeed we live, unafflicted amidst the afflicted by craving. Amidst afflicted men suffering from craving, we remain free from affliction because we are free from craving, desire. Craving is not merely craving for worldly pleasures of all kind derived through the senses, but the worst form of craving is the craving which egotism brings about, which self-interest, self-serving tendency brings about. That is the worst kind of craving. And even then, there is another form of craving which goes together with this ego-born craving. That is a craving to exist in the world, bhavatanha, or the opposite, craving to destroy oneself and the pleasure you get out of destroying others, like the jihad is doing today. Now, this craving is the source of all suffering in the world. The ability to have control over our cravings. Each time a thought of craving arises, whether craving for good food, craving for good clothes, craving for name, craving for fulfillment of ambition, craving for anything for that matter. The only thing where craving cannot arise is craving for freedom. No, you can't crave for freedom. Freedom from samsara cannot be craved. It is the opposite of craving, aspiration. You can only aspire to be free. You don't crave to be free from the world. You aspire to be free from the world. Now that is no craving at all. That is the very opposite of that. So, one way of being very happy is by having so much of control over ourselves that we don't allow any thought of craving whatsoever. Whether it's craving for worldly pleasures, pleasures of all kinds, name and fame, money, possession, all external things, or craving for self-satisfaction of some kind, whether it's through religious practices or through other talent or whatever it is. Craving in any form is craving, and that deprives us of all the elements of happiness that we seek otherwise. We all seek happiness, and we seek happiness that is lasting, stable happiness, not unstable, momentary, short-lived happiness. No. So, happiness or the dukkha nirodha, the destruction of dukkha, these two occur at the same time. They're simultaneous factors. So to the extent we can control ourselves, to that extent we enjoy that happiness, which also means freedom from craving, freedom from affliction. There is one more gatha which is more or less similar. Susukhang vata jivama ussukesu anussukam ussukesu manusesu viharama anasukam viharama anussukam. Happy indeed we live, free from avarice and the anxiety that avarice causes, amidst those who are avaricious. Free from avarice amidst those who are avaricious. Amidst avaricious men, we remain free from avarice. So the other freedom that this particular gatha refers to is freedom from avarice. Avarice is greed of some kind, but it brings about that kind of anxiety for the fulfillment of some covetousness. Intensely seeking this, seeking that, endlessly, there's no end of seeking. So this kind of seeking is symptomatic of avarice of some kind. It's not merely avarice for money or avarice for this and all, no. There can be an avarice for self-satisfaction, which brings about a lot of anxiety. If your anxiety or what you crave is not satisfied, then you're full of anxiety. So, anxiety and avarice, they go together. So a person who can be freed from anxiety, born of avarice and so on, that person enjoys real happiness. And that can come only when we have a measure of control over the mind. Because mind is where avarice lies, anxiety lies, craving lies, affliction lies. All these factors which deprive us from enjoying happiness here and now and hereafter, all these reside in the mind. So ultimately the whole thing goes back to one thing: having control over the mind, having control over the way the mind craves or desires and all that, or becomes hostile. All this. So, control over the mind and happiness, therefore, are inseparable factors. Last time we mentioned a bit of this. There are two ways one can remain free, for instance, from hostility or anger or hatred. while living among others who are full of hatred. We have to live in the world. And to live in the world means being surrounded by people who harbor a lot of hatred, who harbor a lot of avarice, or greed, or craving, all the factors that defile the mind and brings about a disbalance within. So living in this world surrounded by factors which are full of avarice and hostility and anger and all kinds of evil, still we have to cultivate the mind in such a way as not to be affected by the world, not to be affected by all the defiling factors of the world, all the temptations of the world, all the involvements of the world. No. To be free from them requires, therefore, a measure of self-control. One can easily live happily among those who are very angry or unhappy people, or very greedy and therefore very anxious and unhappy, very hateful or very deluded people, all kinds of mental, distorted mental thinking. Living among them, yet remain very sane, full of understanding, full of wisdom. So all this is possible only when we have control over the mind. So somebody once asked, well, please tell me, sir, what exactly is Buddhism? Now you come from a country which gave birth to Buddhism, so you must be knowing a lot of it. I said, no, I don't know a lot of it. I know a little bit. So whatever little I know, I can share with you. So I said, if I have understood Buddha's teachings appropriately and rightly, I think it is nothing but the science of mind. Buddha, every word of the Buddha somehow or other inclines towards mind and how to overcome all the weaknesses of mind and how to develop all the tremendous richness and wealth that is within mind. Mind is the source of bondage and trouble and worry and suffering, and yet mind is the source of happiness and freedom, joy, so much of love and compassion. All that comes from mind. So having understood this, you see, if we proceed to apply Buddhism in our day-to-day life, being free from all the prejudices of different religion and caste and creed and this and that, just as the science of mind, which frees the mind, or the knowledge and expertise on which enables a person to be free. Free from what? Free from greed, hatred and all that sort of thing. And not only free from that, free in the sense that it is able to garner, nurture and develop all the tremendous wealth that the mind has, the power and virtue and knowledge that the mind has. So if we proceed with a perception that everything is within the mind, and once we set our minds right, we have no quarrel with the world. We can still be in the world, yet be out of the world, above the world. Mere intelligence does not mean ability to control the mind. No, it is just the opposite. The smarter you are, more arrogant you become, more cunning and intriguing you become. It is a horrible thing. So people think in this world which should be ruled by knowledge, they say. What knowledge? Not worldly knowledge. That only increases more greed and hatred and affliction, nothing more than that. But the knowledge of the path that frees the mind, knowledge of that knowledge that enables one to have control over the mind, that is the knowledge that we seek, and Buddha advises us only for that knowledge. So he says, if you want to get that knowledge, there is no other way. Cultivate sila, virtue. So one way of developing happiness and have control over the mind is live a life of virtue. If the world suffers, it is because of the amount of hostility and prejudice and hate and dislike, which means to have too much of ambition and overconfidence over one's smartness. Nonsense. There is no such thing as smartness at all. If that makes us more cunning and crafty. Knowledge must make us more humble, more happy because we are humble, more reverential towards good things, towards virtue, towards wisdom, and more humility. These are the things. Garavocha nivatocha santutti cha katanyata kalena dhamma savanam etang mangalam uttamam. To cultivate this attitude of reverence, a reverential approach towards things, not irreverence and arrogant, but reverence, respectful attitude towards everybody, towards yourself to begin with. A person without self-respect is a zero person, is a person of no virtue, is a person of no self-control, therefore a person with no happiness. That is just the truth. So, Garavo, reverential attitude, not the attitude of doubting and mistrusting and looking down upon others, finding fault. No. Nivatocha becomes hero. This idea of being, I am very smart and good and big and what not. Your mind becomes inflated like a balloon. And one little prick from a little needle, and that balloon is finished. So this mentally inflated, arrogant people, overconfident people, they suffer great misery exactly because of that. They have no control. They develop cunning, intriguing tendencies, but that doesn't bring happiness at all. Happiness requires humility. Humility leads to control over mind. And humility comes from a reverential approach towards something that is great. The moment we are able to say, well, I have done this good deed, very good. I learnt it from the teachings of the Master. May this good deed be a flower at the feet of the Buddha. With this devout mentality of humility and reverence, if we proceed, we become wise. And to that extent we become very happy, and to that extent we have control over the mind. Santutti cha katanyata, to enjoy through contentment, to be free. Whatever we have, in whatever state we are, be contented, be happy, be satisfied. Why keep on seeking this, seeking that, and be ever unsatisfied? No. That is the path to suffering, dissatisfaction. Finding fault with others and dissatisfied with others, and making others too dissatisfied, and create hell within oneself and others. That's not the right way. Cultivate contentment and happiness. Be happy by being satisfied. whatever you have, well, that's good enough. That is the way one can control over the mind and one can enjoy happiness. Katanyuta. Katanyuta means gratitude. Without that, there is no question of spiritual development. You can't proceed 1 inch on the spiritual path unless you have gratitude. The gratitude, it just means very simple, to remember all the good that you have received from any source and forget all the bad things that you have received from any source. Ability to remember the good and to forget and forgive the bad, there lies the secret of happiness. There lies the secret of mastery over the mind. So Katanyuta, Kritagnya Bhava, is a very great quality indeed. Bhagavan Buddha said, Sappurishanam ekameva lakkhanam. The one characteristic, one virtue that characterizes a good person, or goodness for that matter, is the ability to be grateful. To be able to say thank you and not bear grudge. No. So, this is how happiness is to be developed. First of all, by sticking to the Panchashila, the precepts of moral conduct. As soon as you stick to precepts of moral conduct, you will see you will have an indirect control over the mind. And the more you perfect your Shila, your virtue, see, when you don't kill and you don't hurt anybody, you don't harm either physically, verbally or in any way, you develop a consciousness where you try to preserve, protect everybody, every being. And a person whose mind is imbued with this sense of protection and helping others rather than hurting others, that mind is a wonderful mind, and that's a mind full of control, self-controlled mind, and therefore enjoys happiness. So Sila, if you go into the implications of all your moral precepts, I am sure you will find a wealth of information, wealth of knowledge that will enable you to be virtuous and noble. Who is that who doesn't want to be virtuous and noble? Even the worst of criminals I have seen, they crave to be virtuous. But they have no self-control over themselves, therefore they indulge in all kinds of evil and land themselves in the jail or in all kinds of misfortune. So, virtue is a great thing to acquire, with which you can bring about self-control. Though it is an indirect way of cultivating the mind, is a powerful tool nonetheless. And the other way is meditation. Direct control over the mind is not indirect control at all. And this is the most effective way you can really enjoy happiness. Happiness through calmness of mind. Happiness through developing an undefined pure mind. Who can deprive you from that peace of mind, from that peace and the happiness which ensues from peace? Who can deprive you of this? Your money you can be deprived of your money, of your family wealth, of your family, of everything. But nobody can deprive you of your real inner peace. And that is just what is worthwhile to have. One day we all have to go. We should always remind ourselves of that truth. We can't avoid that. So when we have to go, what is it that we carry? We don't carry all our wealth and relatives and money and name and fame, power and position, nothing. We have come like a zero, we go like a zero. All that we carry with ourselves is the load of karma. Either wholesome good karma or unwholesome bad karma, and we create our own destiny with our own karmic forces. So when we have to create our destiny by our present actions and karmas, why not do the good one? And the best way to do the good one is by bringing about self-control and enjoy the peace of mind which comes from self-control. So meditation simply means self-control from moment to moment. You are thrown right on your back and you face your mind when you meditate. Every thought, unwholesome thought that arises, vigorously if you apply to remove that unwholesome thought, that is where meditation starts. And when you restore the peace by removing the unwholesome thought, and then with the restoration of peace, you enjoy a great deal of happiness. This happiness it comes directly from the mind as a result of direct control over the mind. It is as simple as that. So when you practice meditation seriously, as a discipline, not just once in a way you go and in some retreat program and this, that, no. Day in, day out as a discipline. Telling yourself, well, whether I'm at home or outside, wherever I go, I eat at the proper time. So why not I feed my mind with the proper food, the food of meditation, where the mind becomes clean, freed from all obstacles, spiritual obstacles, obstacles that come on the way to spiritual development, come on the way to enjoying peace and happiness. So by meditation, what happens? You overcome the 5 obstacles, then bring about a state of peace where your mind automatically develops certain qualities known as jhananga. You develop the ability to apply yourself fully and totally to your meditation subject. The meditation subject at the beginning is just initial, parikambasam, nimitta, and then it grows into a mentalized image. Say you are meditating on breath. You start with your physical breathing. There's the bodily phenomena. It's a physiological phenomena called breath. And then as you are able to remove all the wrong thoughts and mind becomes calm and calm and calm, that object turns into a mentalized image. Ubgaha nimitta. And as you keep on developing in this way and free the mind completely from the 5 impediments that, you see, make it impossible to progress higher and higher, well, these obstacles as they are removed, then this object of meditation also changes. It becomes patibhaga nimitta, a counterpart image. That means an image, mental image or object which reflects the nature of the pure mind that you have developed through your meditation. Your mind becomes absolutely clean, therefore very bright. So the object you see in your mind is nothing but a bright object like the sunshine, like a full moon, like a sun arising, something very bright and which brings in great deal of happiness indeed, great deal of rapture and joy. Once you have this and you keep on cultivating and developing, then the jhanangas appear one by one. One is the ability to apply the mind on this pure object, that is Patibhaga Nimitta, the bright object. Is no more the breath. Is the bright object which has, from the breath it has come to that. It has evolved. Now, next you keep on, sustain application on that. Keep the mind on that fixed calm thought may. So you develop great concentration, one-pointedness of mind. Then comes a lot of joy and it grows into rapture. And that again grows into happiness, a kind of bliss, which is a combination of peace and happiness. So all the four once you develop, the fifth one is one-pointedness. All the five when they combine, your mind is transported into a different plane of existence known as samadhi, rupavachara. Last time we mentioned a little bit about that. Now, I don't think it is necessary for us to go and discuss about what samadhi is, unless a person is very deeply involved in the practice of meditation. But this much knowledge is enough for every seeker of truth, that the mind can be changed, it can be lifted, transported in a different dimension where the nature of the mind itself changes. It's like the milk becoming butter or ghee. Once you are able to lift the mind to the stages through the jhanas or samadhis to the level of the supermundane stages of insight called lokuttara jnana, magga and phala jnana, your mind becomes something like the milk becoming ghee, totally transmuted. And that is the goal of spirituality, because once you cultivate that, develop that, and the mind is transformed, you are a saint, you are an enlightened person. You have had a direct experience of Nibbana. With this, I conclude, may the grace of Lord Buddha surround your lives. May you all be endowed with this great ability of practicing meditation, sila and meditation, so that you enjoy true happiness. Sukhino bhavantu.